Shalom, assalamu alaikum, etc., priветствую. Whatever language you speak, hello, greetings, welcome to Understanding Judaism, video number 3. If I recall, the last section we talked about, let's see here, was false gods. So, in Judaism, the next section is called The King and I, and that will go until God is good. So, here we go. You can believe everything you've learned until now that Judaism teaches about God. That God is an all-powerful being who created the universe, one, not many, not two, and not three, and still be totally irreligious if you're a deist. Deists have no trouble believing in God. They just can't believe that an all-powerful God could be interested in us. Deism compares the relationship of God to the world to that of a watchmaker and a watch that he made. A craftsman may produce a magnificent timepiece, but that doesn't mean he'll have an ongoing relationship with it. The deist asks, could the creator of the whole universe really be interested in little old me? He rejects a belief in a personal God who continues to be concerned and involved with his creations and feels quite comfortable in ignoring a creator he is sure doesn't care about him. It's interesting that the very first of the Ten Commandments, in which God identifies himself, obviously addresses not only the atheist but the deist as well. I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. Not only does God use the pronoun I to express his existence as well as his personhood to teach you that God is not just an abstract force or concept, but he makes it clear that he is a God of history who maintains an ongoing relationship with human beings. As a matter of fact, God not only refers to his role as the redeemer of the entire Jewish people from the land of Egypt, but he also stresses his intervention in every house of bondage. God tells us he is concerned with what happens in every house. He may be the king of the universe, but the king and I is the best description of our relationship. Jews refer to God as the God of Abraham, not just because Abraham discovered him. What we mean in a deeper sense is that the very God who created the world isn't too busy or too distant from his creation to be involved with the details of the life of Abraham. And not just Abraham. I am the Lord your God. That means every one of us. God knows, God cares, God plays a role in everything that happens to us. How can one person possibly do so much? Did you forget? He's not a person. That's what makes him God. And this little section for Ask the Rabbi. Jews for Jesus are willing to recognize Jesus as Messiah in accord with Christian doctrine. Judaism believes that Messiah has yet to come because the Messianic age and its blessing of universal peace and acceptance of God have still to be fulfilled. I guess we'll continue to respectfully disagree until God himself gives us his final word on this matter. God is good. If God were a human being, there's one thing we wouldn't have expected of him. In the course of history, we've seen that the maxim of Lord action is invariably correct. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. When the rulers like Saddam Hussein can do whatever they please, we don't expect them to be partisans of virtue. That's why it's so remarkable to realize that Abraham gave us the gift of not only of a belief in God, but the concept of ethical monotheism as well. The very word God in English is a contraction of a longer word good. God, who could be anything, chose to be good. So strongly does Judaism hold this to be true that the Bible records one of the most remarkable debates between a human being and the Almighty. When God informs Abraham that he is about to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah for their wickedness, Abraham has the absolute gall to say to him, will the judge of the whole world not act justly? What about the innocent people in these cities? Abraham wants to know. To paraphrase him just a bit, it's almost as if Abraham complains to God, God forbid you to do such a thing. It might not seem so unusual to us, steeped as we're in a centuries-old tradition or belief in a righteous God. Just imagine, though, how daring it must have been for Abraham to make this assumption at a time when it was common for kings to dictatorially do as they pleased without regard to any ethical or moral considerations. Abraham accepted God as the creator of the whole universe, yet he was unwilling to believe that God might act in such an unjust manner. What's even more striking is that God agreed with Abraham. You didn't understand, God explains. If there would indeed be a minimum number of good people in these wicked cities, God admits, he wouldn't be able to destroy them. What Abraham suspected, the Bible later reveals the essence of God's nature and character. The rock, or God, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice, a God of faithfulness and without iniquity, just and right as he, which is Deuteronomy 32:4. When Moses asked God to share with him a little bit more about his personality, God lets him know his attributes. The Lord, a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, rich in steadfast kindness, extending kindness to the thousandth generation, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin, acquitting the penchant. Exodus 34:6-7. If that's what it means to be God, say the rabbis, these attributes must be holy. If God is good, then humankind has to imitate him. And that's why adding the adjective ethical to the belief in monotheism is probably the most relevant to all the Jewish beliefs about God. Belief in a cruel God makes a cruel man, by the way. Remember that? Ethical monotheism is the belief that there is only one God who chooses to limit himself to acting only in a just and ethical manner. In the musical Fiddler on the Roof, Tvier not only talked to God throughout the day, but sometimes even argued with him. Too daring? Not at all. He took his cue from Abraham and also argued with God. God, for a Jew, can be held for his commitment to justice. Yes. And when I come back for the next video, it's going to be 2 names. Tough love. Shalom.